Do you know why Allah removed them? Because they were never written into the part of your story where you finally become who He created you to be. The pain was a divine block, not a breakdown. You thought you were building something real, something special. You were pouring your heart into it. You made room in your life, your mind, your du'as, because you believed this was going somewhere. You believed they were sent by Allah. You believed this pain would eventually turn into peace. But now, you're sitting in silence, alone, wounded, trying to make sense of a heartbreak that came out of nowhere, a goodbye you didn't expect, a shift in their behavior that still echoes in your head at night. And I know it hurts, but what if I told you it wasn't a failure? What if I told you Allah didn't let it break because you were wrong, but because you were about to stay in something that would have slowly destroyed you? You were not weak. You were loyal. You were not lost. You were committed to something your soul hoped was real. But Allah, He saw the things you couldn't see. He saw the intentions you weren't aware of. He saw the future your heart was too emotionally invested to notice. And He knew if He didn't intervene, you would have bent your worth just to stay accepted. You would have kept shrinking your voice, silencing your needs, ignoring the warning signs just to keep the connection alive. So He stepped in, not with noise, not with explanation, but with a sudden wall, a moment, a shift, an end. And you've been calling it a breakdown, but it was never meant to break you. It was meant to block you. Block you from a life that looked safe on the outside, but would have turned you into someone you no longer recognized on the inside. You were calling it love, but Allah called it a test. You were praying for closeness, but Allah was preparing distance, because the closeness you were seeking was not with Him. You were giving your heart to someone before you gave it back to Allah, and He couldn't let that continue. Because when Allah loves you, He doesn't just save your soul from the fire. He saves it from fake peace, from emotional slavery, from a version of life where you're loved but only when you're quiet, small or broken. He didn't allow it to continue because deep down you started to become someone who was surviving, not thriving. Someone who was emotionally starving but still smiling for the sake of patience. Someone who was becoming numb just to not lose what was never really yours. So yes, He made it painful. Yes, it came without warning. Yes, it felt like betrayal. But in the unseen, that pain was a rescue mission. Your heart was about to settle for less than it was created to carry. And Allah said, not this one, not my servant, not like this. So He ended it quickly, quietly, painfully. And now you're grieving something that felt real, but He's replacing it with something that will be true. You just haven't seen it yet. He didn't take that person away because He wanted you to suffer. He took them away because if they stayed, they would have taken you away from who you're meant to become. That pain you're feeling right now, it's not a wound. It's a wall Allah built around your future, because He didn't want you to enter it with the wrong people, the wrong habits, or the wrong definition of love. And one day you'll thank Him. One day the tears you're hiding today will be replaced with a smile that says, Ya Allah, I see it now. I see what you saved me from. So please remember, this wasn't heartbreak. This was divine protection. This wasn't a breakdown. This was Allah blocking your soul from shrinking any further. He didn't end it to punish you. He ended it because your light is about to rise. And not everyone deserves to stand near it when it does. The disconnection wasn't delayed timing, it was divine interception. You keep asking, why did it stop right when it was about to begin? Why did they walk away when I finally opened up? Why did Allah wait until I got attached to take it away? The truth is, you weren't rejected. You weren't overlooked. You were intercepted. You didn't miss your moment. You were rescued from something your heart thought was love, but your soul hadn't been consulted about. Because sometimes you move with your emotions, and Allah, out of His mercy, moves faster. Faster than your plans. Faster than your feelings. Faster than your downfall. He saw you stepping towards something that looked right, felt right, sounded like a blessing, but wasn't rooted in Him. And so, before it turned into a quiet collapse, He intercepted it. Just like a parent pulling their child out of the street when a car is coming, you may cry at the force. You may be confused by the sudden stop, but one day, you'll be grateful for the hand that pulled you away. That's what divine interception feels like. It feels unfair when it happens. It feels cruel. It feels like you were just one step away from joy and then it disappeared. But here's what you didn't see. You were not one step away from joy. You were one step away from emotional debt. You were one step away from tying your peace to someone who wasn't designed to carry it. You were one step away from calling a distraction your destiny. And Allah, out of His immense love for you, said, not this one, not this time, not for you. Because He knew you were about to pour your love into a connection that would require you to lose yourself first. He knew you were about to ignore your own needs, your own values, your own energy, just to prove you were worth keeping. And so, He interrupted the script. He rewrote the ending. Not because your love wasn't real, but because the foundation wasn't divine. You don't always get warnings from Allah in the form of words. Sometimes the warning comes as disconnection, silence, distance, delays that don't make sense. You call it bad timing, but Allah calls it perfect mercy. He didn't let the attachment deepen. He didn't let the plans unfold, because He saw that if it went any further, it would become an emotional addiction you couldn't walk away from. So He stepped in. He disrupted the rhythm. He dried the attention. He changed their heart. He moved yours in a different direction. Not to confuse you, but to correct your course. Because you were starting to rely on someone's presence more than you were relying on Allah's nearness. You were waiting for messages more than you were waiting for His mercy. You were adjusting your worth based on someone else's mood, and your soul was starving for a reminder of who you truly belong to. So He paused everything. He didn't remove you from your journey. He removed what would have removed you from your faith. Because that's what divine interception really is. It's when Allah tears down the thing you were building, not because He doesn't want you to build, but because He knows you were about to build it on sand. One wave, one mistake, one disappointment, and your entire emotional world would have collapsed. So He stopped it. Not because you didn't deserve love, but because He didn't want you to settle for less than sacred love. And maybe you're crying now. Maybe you're wondering if it will ever make sense. But one day, when your heart is finally whole, when your soul no longer asks for what once wounded it, when your peace becomes non-negotiable, you'll whisper the words that every healed believer eventually says, Ya Allah, thank you for what you didn't allow to continue, because I would have begged you for what would have buried me. That's not loss, that's love, that's interception. And it means you were always seen, always protected, even in the moments that looked like divine silence. The people who left were never meant to see the soul that's being written now. They were close to you once. They saw you in your lowest moments. They heard your broken voice when you could barely speak between the tears. They said things like, "I'm not going anywhere." And you believed them. You gave them access to the most fragile parts of your soul. You let them see your vulnerability before even you understood what it meant to be this open. But now, they're gone, detached, silent, distant, maybe even cold. And you're left wondering, how did someone go from holding me to forgetting me? How did they go from understanding my silence to ignoring my existence? Let me tell you something softly, gently, so your heart doesn't mishear it. They didn't walk away because you weren't enough. They walked away because they were never meant to witness the version of you Allah is now writing in silence. Some people were assigned to the chapter of your breaking. They were only temporary characters in the scene where you were still learning how to breathe through the chaos. And that's where their role ended. They were not written into the pages where you rise. They were not chosen to stand beside the version of you that prays deeper, loves cleaner, and walks lighter. Because that version, the one still being carved through tears and isolation, it's sacred, it's protected, and it's too precious to be seen by hearts that only knew how to hold you when you were broken. Do you understand? You see, when Allah begins transforming your soul, He doesn't just change what's inside you. He changes what's around you. He removes the people who only connected with your wounds. Because once you begin to heal, their connection no longer fits. Their presence begins to feel heavier. Their energy no longer aligns. Their conversations no longer reach where your soul now lives. And that's not your fault. That's not ego. That's evolution, spiritual, divine evolution. So yes, it hurts. It hurts when the ones who knew your tears don't stay long enough to see your light. It hurts when people you prayed for don't pray for you. It hurts when you start glowing in silence and realize no one is there to witness it. But that's exactly how Allah wanted it. Because not everyone can handle your healing. Not everyone should be present when Allah takes your emptiness and fills it with peace. Not everyone should hear your du'as being answered, especially the ones who only stood beside you when you had nothing to offer except your pain. Sometimes Allah removes people to protect your next season from old energy, from those who would have held you back with their doubts, from those who would have shamed your growth by calling it change, from those who would have said, "You're not the same anymore," when really you weren't supposed to be. Some people are allergic to your healing, and Allah knew they would have tried to interrupt the version of you He's creating now. The version that is finally centered, finally surrendered, finally willing to walk away from anything that drains your soul, no matter how familiar it feels. So please, stop wondering why they left. Stop trying to understand how someone who held your hand could be so quiet now. Stop rereading the last messages. Stop replaying the last conversations. Allah heard the parts of their hearts you didn't. He saw the chapters they were never going to support. And He removed them not to punish you, but to preserve you. Because the soul He's writing now, the one that stays firm in sujood, the one that smiles without needing anyone's presence, the one that's learning how to be full even when no one claps for your healing, that soul is not to be seen by just anyone. You are not missing people. You are shedding old witnesses. Because what's coming next in your life will only make sense to those who love you through your light, not just your darkness. And those people, Allah is still preparing them, just like He's preparing you. Until then, grow quietly, glow secretly, and heal knowing this. The ones who left weren't wrong, but they were never written into the part of your story where Allah makes you whole again. Your isolation isn't a pause. It's an upgrade room with no visitors allowed. You think you're in a pause, that everything has slowed down. that life stopped moving forward, that people stopped checking in, that your name is no longer being mentioned in rooms you once felt part of. You feel invisible. You scroll through old memories like someone who's been left behind. You walk through your own thoughts like a stranger. You're wondering if Allah hit pause on your life or if you somehow messed up the story completely. But what if I told you you're not paused? You're in the upgrade room. And that room is not crowded. In fact, it's locked on purpose by Allah. Because what's happening inside of you right now is so sacred, so powerful, so deeply transformative that Allah doesn't allow anyone else to witness it. This is not punishment. This is protection. He stripped away the noise, the distractions, the attachments, even the people you once thought would never leave. Not because you were unworthy, but because what's being built inside you can't survive in chaos. You see, there comes a time in every believer's journey where Allah doesn't elevate you in public. He upgrades you in private, because public transformation leads to pressure. But private transformation, that leads to purity. So if you're in isolation right now, if your circle has gotten smaller, if your phone is quieter, if your days feel repetitive and lonely, don't call it a delay. Don't call it abandonment. Call it what it truly is. Divine isolation for soul elevation. You're not being left out. You're being tucked away. Because what's inside you is being rewritten. And when Allah rewrites something, He removes distractions from the room. Would you bring a crowd into an operating room while a surgeon is doing heart surgery? Then why would Allah let people stay while He's doing surgery on your soul? He knows what needs to be removed from your character. He knows which wound needs to be reopened, not ignored. He knows which part of your personality was formed from pain, not peace. He knows what version of you needs to die quietly, so a better version can rise without noise. And that's why you're not in the spotlight. That's why no one sees you right now. That's why nothing is taking off yet. Because this version of you is not meant to be rushed. It's meant to be refined. And refinement requires isolation. Not everyone will understand this season. They'll call it laziness. They'll call it depression. They'll say you've disappeared. But only you and Allah know what's really happening. You're being upgraded in private. And when that upgrade is complete, you won't need to announce it. You won't need to post about it. You won't need to prove it to anyone. Because the soul that comes out of that room will walk differently, speak differently, pray differently, choose differently. Not from ego, but from divine clarity. So don't fight this season of isolation. Don't try to drag people back into a room Allah has cleared. Don't beg for noise when your silence is sacred. Don't label this quiet phase as punishment when it's actually preparation. He loves you too much to let the next version of you be formed under pressure. So He placed you in a space with no audience, no background music, no expectations, just you, your breath, your pain, and your du'as. Because the next chapter of your life, the one where you are finally aligned, at peace, and walking in your true purpose, that chapter needs a stronger, clearer, softer, and spiritually sharper version of you. And that version can only be born in isolation. So stay patient. This is not a pause. This is the upgrade room. And not even you will recognize who Allah is quietly creating behind this locked door. The slowness you feel is Allah matching you with a destiny that won't humiliate you later. You keep asking, why is it taking so long? Why is nothing moving forward? Why does every door I knock on stay shut? You look around and People seem to be getting married, getting jobs, finding peace, building families, healing fast, glowing. And here you are, still waiting, still stuck, still praying the same dua over and over, wondering if it even reached the sky. But what if I told you, this isn't delay, this is precision, because when Allah delays something, it's never random, it's never laziness, it's never because He's ignoring you, it's because He's protecting you from being placed in something not worthy of your soul. You see, sometimes we rush, we say, Ya Allah, just give it to me, I can handle it. But we don't realize that our impatience would push us into a future that isn't fully safe yet. Yes, you're ready, but the thing you're praying for is not ready for you. It still has ego, it still has shadows, it still carries pieces that would cut your heart if they met you too soon. So Allah slows it down, not to test your limits, but to match your growth with your future's purity. Because what's worse than waiting is arriving early and being humiliated by something you thought was a blessing. He doesn't want you to enter a marriage where you'll slowly fade away just to keep peace. He doesn't want you to walk into a business deal that looks right but silently drains your soul. He doesn't want you to meet someone who says all the right things but will leave you confused, lost, and begging for the bare minimum 5 months later. Allah is never just giving you what you asked for. He's filtering it first. Because you asked for peace, right? You asked for a love that's real, a future that's safe, a life that doesn't demand you to shrink, break, or doubt your worth. So now Allah is matching you with that prayer, and that match takes time. It takes cleaning, it takes testing, it takes divine protection from what looks perfect on the surface but would harm your soul in silence. And I know waiting makes you feel like maybe you weren't chosen, maybe your dua wasn't good enough, maybe you missed your chance. But let me tell you something deeply, softly. Allah does not forget the dua that was whispered in tears. He does not delay without reason, and He does not give you something quickly if He knows it will make you question Him later. He's not rushing to give you what's fast. He's preparing what's faithful. He's not giving you what impresses others. He's giving you what will protect your peace when no one else is watching. So if things are slow right now, if nothing is taking off, if your plans keep stalling, if your timeline feels like it's stuck in place, maybe it's not punishment, maybe it's protection from humiliation later. You don't need a fast marriage, you need a safe one. You don't need a viral breakthrough. You need a barakah-filled rise that lasts. You don't need an overnight glow up. You need a divinely timed transformation, one that doesn't collapse under pressure. And that timing is only known to the one who sees the entire picture. So slow down, breathe. The slowness is not against you, it's on your side. Allah isn't making you wait because He's distant. He's making you wait because what you prayed for is still being protected from what would have broken it. And when it finally arrives, when the door opens, when the dua becomes reality, you'll say with tears in your eyes, Ya Allah, now I understand why it took so long. You weren't just preparing my blessing, you were making sure it wouldn't destroy me once I got it. That's not delay, that's mercy, that's love. That's a master who never rushes your soul into spaces not meant to carry it. Because Allah will never let your destiny arrive in a form that humiliates your sincerity. He honors what you prayed for in secret. And when He delivers, it'll be something that never makes you feel like you begged for the wrong thing. So if it's slow right now, it's because He's still building something that won't shame you later. Your name is being carved into something they'll never be able to touch again. They said your name when it was convenient. They reached for you when you were available. They remembered you when they needed something and forgot you when you needed them. They didn't understand the weight of your sincerity. They didn't know your loyalty wasn't casual. That when you love with your whole soul. When you give in ways that leave nothing for yourself. But then they left, not with a war, but with silence. Not with a goodbye, but with distance. And you were left behind, carrying pieces of a story no one ever finished. You were left remembering while they moved on forgetting. And it hurt because your name became too familiar to those who never valued its meaning. Your time, your loyalty, your kindness, all poured into people who couldn't see the sacredness of your presence. But now, Allah is doing something you don't fully see yet. He's rewriting your story. He's recarving your soul. He's placing your name in places they will never be allowed to reach again. Because your name is no longer accessible to those who played with it. It's no longer lightweight. No longer something they can say, call, manipulate, or remember when it suits them. It's being lifted from the casual, the careless, the temporary, lifted from group chats that once laughed at your pain, lifted from environments that celebrated your silence but mocked your voice. Do you know what Allah does to people? He loves people whose hearts have been mishandled by the world. He removes their name from the mouths that once said it without respect and engraves it into the unseen. He lets you be forgotten on earth so you can be honored in the skies. He lets you be removed from their memory so He can plant you into His mercy. Because your value was never supposed to be determined by people who only liked the broken version of you. So if you've been wondering why no one calls anymore, why no one checks in, why your name doesn't come up in their stories anymore, it's because Allah is protecting the new version of you from being accessed by people who would have poisoned it again. He's placing your name in the kind of spaces where it's spoken with dua, not gossip, where it's remembered by angels, not misused by people, where it's lifted by love, not passed around for laughs. You're not just healing, you're being hidden. And once Allah hides someone, He only reveals them to those who can handle the weight of their light. So, yes, they'll look for you one day. They'll scroll, they'll search. They'll remember what they once had easy access to, but they won't find it anymore. Not because you disappeared, but because Allah elevated you to a place their hands can't reach, their eyes can't see, and their energy can't touch. Your name is being carved into conversations of the angels, into nights where Allah is writing your destiny with love, not leftovers, into a future that doesn't require you to beg to be seen because it's built around the you who already knows your worth through Him. And that's why it's been so quiet, so lonely, so unfamiliar. Because Allah doesn't carve diamonds in public. He does it underground, in pressure, in silence, in darkness. But when they rise, no one can touch them without being worthy. That's you. The next time someone says your name, it'll be in rooms where you're respected, in hearts that make dua for you, in stories that don't end in abandonment. Because your name is no longer casual. It's carved, protected, hidden, and soon honored. The you that's forming doesn't apologize for being protected by Allah. There was a time when you kept explaining yourself to people who never really listened. You kept defending your silence, justifying your distance, apologizing for your growth. You felt guilty for choosing peace. You felt heavy for saying no. You wondered if protecting your heart made you cold or distant or hard to love. But now, something is changing inside you. It's quiet, but it's real. You're no longer explaining. You're no longer chasing. You're no longer inviting people to understand a journey they were never meant to walk with you. Because something in your soul finally whispered, enough. Enough with making your healing small just to keep the peace. Enough with opening doors that Allah already closed. Enough with handing out pieces of your energy to people who only call when they're hungry for attention but never stay when you're starving for sincerity. You used to feel bad for creating space. Now you feel calm in it. You used to doubt whether you were becoming cold. Now you realize you're being covered. Covered by the one who sees your sincerity even when no one else does. Protected by the one who knows that your softness was never the problem. It was the people who kept using it as a doorway to take more than they gave. Do you know what's happening? You're forming, you're becoming someone who's no longer addicted to being understood, because now you're seen by Allah. You're no longer bending your identity for temporary peace. You're no longer shrinking your light for people who preferred the dim version of you. The version that stayed quiet, that stayed small, that stayed easily available. That version is gone. And the version that's coming, it doesn't apologize for boundaries. It doesn't apologize for walking away. It doesn't apologize for needing time, space, and solitude. Because when Allah starts guarding a soul, He builds walls of silence around it, not to isolate it, but to elevate it. You're not becoming distant. You're becoming disciplined. You're not heartless. You're finally listening to your heart, the one you used to silence just to make everyone else feel comfortable. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your energy, because now you realize Allah is the one protecting it and you're just obeying His wisdom. He taught you through heartbreak. He taught you through betrayal. He taught you through every ignored message, every misunderstood word, every "I'm too busy" that came right when you needed someone the most. And now you're not bitter. You're just guarded with love, with prayer, with clarity, because the you that's forming knows this. Not everyone deserves to sit near your soul. Not everyone should be allowed to hear your pain. Not everyone is qualified to stand beside you during a transformation that Allah personally designed. You were open. Now you are aware. You were soft. Now you are structured. You were available. Now you are aligned. And there is no need to apologize for that. When Allah begins protecting someone, He doesn't just remove people. He removes access. Access to your time, your thoughts, your softness, your name. And when people start to notice, when they start to feel that they can no longer read you, reach you, or control you, they may call you changed. Let them say, you're different now. Let them say, you've distanced yourself. Because the truth is, you have changed. You have distanced yourself, not from love, but from people who mistook your love as weakness. You're not hard to love. You're just no longer willing to let pain wear the disguise of closeness. That's growth. That's maturity. That's divine protection unfolding inside you, whether they see it or not. So no, you don't apologize for this version. This version of you is quiet but full, gentle but guarded, calm but powerful. And above all, this version of you is no longer shaped by people. It's being shaped by Allah. And when Allah shapes a soul, He removes the need to ever explain it again. The version of you that's coming will be a reminder that Allah never needed an audience to perform a miracle. You've been healing in silence, changing in silence, crying in silence, rebuilding where no one can see you. And sometimes that hurts more than the pain itself, because it feels like you're doing everything right, but nothing is moving. No recognition, no applause, no comfort, just quiet mornings and even quieter nights. You wonder, does anyone even notice how much I've changed? Does anyone see the growth I'm fighting for? Why is my transformation happening in the dark while others shine effortlessly in the light? But let me gently remind you, Allah never needed an audience to perform a miracle. Not for the prophets, not for the people before you, and not for you. You don't need to be seen right now, because what's happening inside you is too sacred for public display. He's turning pain into wisdom, tears into clarity, isolation into preparation. And you're not meant to broadcast what's still blooming. Do you think a flower feels unseen while growing underground? Do you think it rushes to be noticed? Or does it trust the process, knowing that one day it will break through the soil and no one will be able to ignore its presence? That's you. You're still under the soil. But something divine is happening where no eyes can reach. No likes, no shares, no validation. Just you and the one who sees every breath of effort, every late night dua, every quiet decision to keep going, even when nothing around you seems to be changing. Allah doesn't need noise to create greatness. He didn't need an audience when He split the sea. He didn't need a crowd when He softened a heart. He didn't wait for people to believe in you before He began writing the version of you that will make them speechless. You're not behind, you're hidden, and there's a difference. Hidden means protected. Hidden means growing safely. Hidden means being nurtured privately so that when the time comes, you rise fully prepared. The version of you that's coming will carry peace that can't be explained, a glow that isn't from skincare or selfies, but from knowing exactly who brought you out of the pain. A presence that makes people wonder, where were they all this time? And the answer? With Allah. While they were gathering followers, you were gathering strength. While they were chasing attention, you were chasing connection. While they were being seen by the world, you were being seen by the one who made the world. You are the miracle no one saw coming. Not because you were loud, but because your silence was sacred, because your prayers were consistent, because your soul stayed in sujood when others sought shortcuts. And when Allah finally reveals this version of you, there will be no need to explain where you've been, no need to announce your return, no need to prove your worth, because miracles don't need introductions. They arrive and their presence says everything. You won't need revenge. You won't need validation. You won't need to be loud about your healing. You'll just be present, grounded, peaceful, glowing not from attention but from alignment. And those who left, those who doubted, those who looked at your silence as failure, they'll realize too late that Allah was doing something in you they couldn't see because they were never meant to. This version of you, it won't be for everyone. It won't be accessible. It won't be explainable because it was never meant to be understood. It was meant to be witnessed by the right people at the right time, in the right way, through the lens of divine timing. So keep going. You're not being overlooked. You're being prepared for a moment that doesn't require a spotlight. Because when Allah writes your rise, it will be a miracle that no one can take credit for except Him. And when they ask you, how did you get here? Your answer will be the simplest, purest truth. It was Allah and no one else. So, my brother, my sister, maybe this season has been quiet. Maybe you've been feeling invisible. Maybe you've been asking Allah why it hurts so much just to grow. But let me remind you gently, you were never left behind. You were simply being hidden because the version of you that Allah is creating is too sacred to be shaped in front of people who only knew your brokenness. So if He delayed the moment, if He removed the person, if He silenced the path, it's because what's coming next will be too beautiful to share with those who doubted your journey. Stay close to Him, even when it's quiet, even when it hurts. Because when Allah is finally done preparing you, even you won't recognize the strength that's been quietly blooming inside you all along. And on that day, your soul will whisper, Ya Allah, thank you for not letting them see me until I was finally whole.